Trustee Healy, here. Trustee Katsinas. Trustee Malani, here. Trustee Campos, or Trustee Reardon. Trustee. Here. Mayor Pico, here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Trustee Radishevsky, it's good to have you back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to be back.
Approval of the August 15, 2022 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Mayor, Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of August 15, 2022.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas. Aye. Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Campos. Aye. Trustee Radishevsky.
I'm going to abstain. I wasn't here.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Primary and redundant water supply for the village of Orland Park.
Mayor and Village Board, the next three items are related to one topic. Of potable water is a problem in parts of the U.S. and in many parts of the world. We are fortunate to have access to potable water from the Great Lakes. This access, however, requires stewardship from the village, both environmental by minimizing water loss and financial by making access to potable water as economical as possible. To assist with this stewardship, during the past 12 months, contracts with 2 consultants were approved relative to the village's water system, a utility rate study and water meter evaluation. These draft reports, along with information regarding water system redundancy, are being presented tonight. First, Engineering Director Krishi Hoda will provide an update regarding steps being taken by the village to ensure water access redundancy. Second, Public Works Director Joel Van Assen, along with Baxter Woodman consultant Mike Kenny, will present the results of the water meter evaluation. And then finally, Finance Director Kevin Wachter, along with New Gen Strategies and Solution Consultants Eric Colochia and Tia Carnes, will present the results of the water and sewer rate study. A major objective of any public utility system, such as Orland Park's water and sewer utility, is to be financially self-supporting. To do so, a utility system must recover its costs in full through the water and sewer user fee system. Water and sewer user charges are intended to recover costs associated with operation, maintenance, equipment placement, and capital construction. Even with the recommended rate increases, Orland Park customers will have access to safe and clean water at rates lower than many communities, including Tinley Park, Downers Grove, Oak Forest, Lombard, Elmhurst, and others, ensuring that the village remains a good steward to this strategic natural resource.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and trustees. As George said, I'm going to be talking about the current water system that we have that we use to collect and distribute water, as well as what have we done for various redundancy units. Just before that, I have prepared a couple slides to show the value of water, drinking water, fresh water, overall, and how does it relate to the village of Orland Park. I did a little bit of research on my own, and I was surprised to see myself that of the 3% of Earth's water that is available for us as fresh water, only 0.3% of that water is available to human being. They said if we have 100 liters of water, we only have half a spoon of that water available to human beings. So it is very precious, and we certainly care for that. There's about 1 billion people in the world who do not have safe or clean water. I believe it's more than that, but that's what the data says. And half of the water is available only in 6 countries. Of those, Brazil has the most amount of water, which is, of course, because of the river Amazon that they have. And in the future, scientists are predicting that there will be a shortage of fresh water. We are fortunate, like George said, we have Lake Michigan water available to us, as easy as it can be. So what are the benefits of municipal water versus the commercial water supplies, such as Illinois American Water? There are two elements that are very important. One is cost. I live in Bolingbrook, and we have Illinois American Water, and my rate is 3 times what the village of Orland Park pays, just to, it's a reality, it's a fact. And then the reliability. We, as a village, is in the business of service, and we're not in the business of profits. So we certainly pay more attention, more detail, and more focused on providing this water. The other part, which many communities in the Chicago metro area, they do not have access to Lake Michigan water. There is 273 communities in the Chicago metro area, and there's only a handful that have this Lake Michigan water. So we certainly are fortunate in that regard. Another element that works that many of us do not know is that the Lake Michigan water, and for that matter, all the Great Lakes water, is controlled by Canadian and U.S. government, the federal government. And they have formed what is called the International Joint Commission. And they regulate water. And what does regulation means? There's and it has direct impact on us. First of all, how much water each community will get is regulated by IJC. The second part is they have very strict regulations that controls the contamination in the water, and that impacts our cost. For example, they do not allow any kind of connection that connects their water with any other type of water. It has to be completely independent of, so that adds more pressure on us. And then also they control the number of billions of gallons each community get, that is controlled by IJC. Here are some ideas about what we use, how we use it. A 5-minute shower costs us 25 gallons of water. That's just an estimate. The older toilets currently use about 3.5 to 6 gallons per flush, versus newer toilets get about 1.6 gallons. But the most important part is all of us on average use about 110 gallons of water per day. I have that graph over there that may be too small, but it shows the various elements. But 40% of water is used for domestic purposes, just to give you an idea on that. Here is another way to look at, for the village, how much water we use based on 60,000 people as in our population. We use about over 6 million gallons of water per day and 2.4 billion gallons of water per year. That's a good way to look at it. And then I also checked what is the actual data that we currently use, and it matches very well. We use on an average 6 million gallons, but our peak month or days, we use as much as 9 million gallons per day. Generally, July, August, we're just passing through that time where we use the highest amount of water per person, again, 9 million gallons per day. So why do we need water redundancy? It's just a simple fact is that we do not want a system failure, because anytime we have a system failure, it triggers many other emergencies in the village. A simple fact is just if the pump fails, it contaminates water, because stagnant water causes contamination. So we have to maintain pressure, and we have to circulate the water at all hours of the day. That's just the science. That's, not us, not anybody else. That's everybody's work. That's how we work. And like I said, any disturbance of water supply or other items constitute an emergency. It could be in the supply side. It could be the mechanical, electrical, or plumbing side of it. Simple safety, security, natural disasters, anything you can think about that disrupts that system could cause an emergency at various levels. To have a completely redundant system is very expensive, and in many cases it's prohibited. And those were the benefits, but there's a law I believe it's in every state, but this is the law for the Illinois, where we are required to have a redundant water system, because this act calls for continuous operation and maintenance. which can only be achieved if there are redundancies in the various elements of our system. So here's what is water redundancy? Ability of a system to operate during or after a disruptive event. This is not just for water. This is an extraction for many other systems, computers, electrical system, anything that you want to call about that requires a continuous operation. This is what that is from that we have that redundancy. So the fact of the matter is that we do not have a complete and parallel redundant system. And there are many, many reasons for that. At the top of that is cost. If we have to create just a parallel pump station with a reservoir, it exceeds $12 million in cost, just to give you an idea. But then that's just not the factor that we have to have a pump station, and we have to have infrastructure, mechanical, electrical, plumbing system, reservoir, generator, backup system, testing systems, all of that would be required if we want to have a complete parallel system. So instead of that, we have various types and layers and elements of a redundant system that allows us to have a high level of redundancy. Again, it is not a complete parallel system, but it gives us very close to what a complete redundant system will do. But in addition to that, we are continuously keeping an eye on an appropriate level of redundancy layer that we can add to our system, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So what is the goal of our water redundancy? Provide elements of water redundancy, eliminate single point of failure. That is the most important part that we're working very hard, that none of our elements in our water system is a single point of failure. And then I believe we have taken care of in many ways, but we still have something left that we will talk in about 4 or 5 slides down. Also, right-size the water main to achieve required flow and maintain pressure, and provide additional connection points and alternates to our current main pump station. MPS is for main pump station and reservoir. So our primary and redundant water system, we have 10 systems that we have, and that's what I'll talk about. These are the first 5, and then here is the other 5, and I'll talk to you one by one just to give you enough level of detail. The last item that I have here, due to security of our system, I will not be discussing the specific location and specific details, but they are available if you need to know that. We will be happy to provide you in a private session about that, but that's the intent. So our primary water system is about 37 years old. It was built in 1985. At that time, we moved from well water to Lake Michigan water, and what it did is that it improved reliability, improved quality, improved quantity, and probably most important was no water softeners were needed. So that's what we had. Currently, if you look at the map, we get water from Lake Michigan. City of Chicago is the primary source from there. From there, village of Orland, they purchase water, and through there, we get into our system at our main pump station through a 36-inch line, and that's how we distribute to our distribution system or our elevated storage tanks. This system is also internally here at the village is also known as Spur 1. That's it I just explained to you. Regional water system, which is owned by village of Orland, provides water or supplies water to 12 different communities. Orland Park uses about 25% of their total capacity. We are one of the largest users of their system or the total water supply. They get about, excuse me, they get about 10 billion gallons of water, and we use about 2.5 billion of gallons of water on a yearly basis. Now we'll talk about our redundant water supply. First item on that is our main pump station, and I'll talk about the various redundancies we have at the pump station. At the pump station, we have 6 pumps. 4 of them, what we call, is a large pump, and 2 of them is small pumps. The large pumps can pump about 6,000 gallons per minute, whereas the smaller pumps can pump about 2,800 gallons per minute. All of these 6 pumps are on a scheduled replacement program. In fact, there is 1 pump is currently being replaced. The average cost of a pump replacement is anywhere between $500,000 to $800,000, depending on the size of the pump. So these pumps operate in pairs, and there's various different level and configuration that can be used. So you can see that right there, we have, if nothing else, 3 different layers of redundancy at our pump station in regards to our pumps. Then at the main pump station, we also have a generator that can support the entire pump station, its operation in its full capacity. We have monthly and yearly inspections for that generator. It gets regularly checked. Then we also have regular water testing that is tested as well as it gets recorded. So we have that data on a regular basis that we generate. And then we also have our computer system, which is SCADA, that monitors and also collects data about various elements of our water system. Then we come to the Spur 2, that this is the project that is currently at the very end of its design, and hopefully we will be starting construction early spring or summer. That's the intent. We're getting ready to bid this project. So about 10 years ago, a redundant water system process was started. And like I said, we call that, for our purposes, it's a Spur 2. And it's a separate route and separate access to the main pump station. Some of the things that we did as part of this effort after George came on board is that we ensured that the water system will access, this new water system will access the pump station from the opposite direction of the existing access that currently we use. So in a way, we try to keep this completely opposite to each other so that if something happens on one side, we have the other side operational. Just to give you, the same process, just one more line that's coming into our pump station, but it's on the 2 opposite sides. Regional water system is currently 60% design complete, construction complete, and it is expected that it will be fully operational in about 3 more years or so. The estimated construction cost of the total system is about $300 million, and our responsibility is about $75 million. Which is based on the usage. All other communities will pay their share, which will add up to $300 million. Design of Spur 2, which is a section that directly relates to us, that is like a subset of the main design. It provides water to us. It's called Spur 2. Its 98% design is complete. We're currently working on the permit and easements and construction loan, and it is expected that we'll be sending this project out for bidding later this year and starting construction sometime spring to summer next year. It's the estimated cost for Spur 2 only to the village is $20 million. It will be paid by the loan that we will get through Village of Orland, and it is paid over several years. So now we move on to the regional water supplies, another layer of our water system. So regional water system currently supply water to us, what's called Harker Pump Station. It's located at Village of Orland. And as part of the regional water supply, they built another pump station called Reich Pump Station. And however, the Reich Pump Station has been built for about 4 years, but it is not operational for pumping. It is just maintained for contamination purposes, but the Reich Pump Station is not pumping water to any of the municipalities yet. Once the system is complete, that's when it will start doing that. This is another layer of redundancy in the Orland water system, that they'll have 2 pump stations that will be able to pump water to us simultaneously. If one goes down, the other one has full capacity that it can pump water to all of the 12 member communities. Then we come back to one more layer of redundancy. This is, as part of this effort, we added this to the project. It was mentioned in the originally, but then somehow it was getting dropped somewhere. So what we are also doing is connecting the new water line to the old system, so that if needed, if for any reason the connection from this Spur 1 to us is not supplying water to us, then the new system can pump water into the old system, and then that's how we can get water to the Village of Orland Park. So again, this is another layer of redundancy that we added to the project. Our sixth is a third party. We have 3 different connections of various sizes with Illinois American Water. Those are the sizes 12-inch, 16-inch that is currently in existence, 6-inch currently in existence. But the 12-inch, there is another 12-inch that we plan to add to the system at a later date. The important part is that even with the additional 12-inch, it is not going to be sufficient for us to sustain water under emergency conditions. It is for a short duration that will maintain pressure for some time, but it is not going to be a long-term solution. So just something to understand, but it does give us coverage. In fact, the last emergency we had, this is one of the way we maintained our water pressure and water supply. Then we also have another interconnection with the village of Tinley Park. It's a small connection, 8-inch. Again, it's not sufficient for water supply, and it is only for some emergency conditions. Here's another one that we're working very hard on it. It is taking some time for us. That at the pump station, we used to have what we call a T connection, where Orland was able to pump water into our water towers as well as our water system directly. But as part of when we joined regional water supply and as part of the water contamination challenges, they required us to disconnect this connection, which we did. So if you go into the pump station in the basement, you'll see that there is a connection, 16-inch water connection that exists, but it is disconnected from the water main that's coming from Orland. And as part of our redundancy system, we checked with Orland. Orland pumps have the capacity to be able to pump water directly into our water towers without going through our pumps. And we said then we need to take advantage of that. But there are some challenges in the RWS agreement that requires air gap, which means physically there is a gap between their water and our water. And that's what we are overcoming. We have completed the design, and once implemented, it will allow us to get water into our system from Orland. But what it does not do, it does not bypass our main pump station. It will still be going through our main pump station. The requirement for that, it is for only emergencies, and that's perfectly fine. It is only for emergencies, but during emergencies, it will be able to pump water for the entire village. So design is complete. We're ready for bidding, but it is currently under Orland's technical review and RWS agreement reviews. We have secured a grant from DCEO that will be used for fabrication and installation of this connection. Once we have all the approvals, I expect from fabrication to installation, it will take about 6 months for it to get it done. And I'm hoping that it will be done next year. Our second last option is to have a bypass pump station outside of our main pump station. This is planned for future. What it will do, it will literally take Orland's water main and bypass our pump station and connect it on the other side of our pump station, the delivery side of our pump station. So if for any reason we are unable to use our pump station, like what happened about a year or so ago, then we will be able to work with Orland and be able to maintain our water system in terms of pressure and as well as supply. It truly is a complete redundancy of pumps and facility, except for the main infrastructure of pipes. We have added this request for board's approval to do the design and engineering next year, and then we will be asking for construction funds in '24 or beyond. So the last item that I have on my list is, as many of you know, that Joliet is working on a Lake Michigan water supply from city of Chicago. And that is a very large project. And it is expected to take another 8 years to 10 years to complete. But our intent is to request the Joliet that they provide us a cross connection, as they hopefully will be going through our village through their route. So that is our intent, is to request that. If they'll accept it, then we'll work out the details and have a connection through their water system. That was the end of my slide, and please use water wisely if you have any questions.
Thank you, Kashid. And I guess the only points that I'll make for the residents of the village is, one, if you were going to design a water system, you would do it on a loop where we could go either direction, and we wouldn't have to have these two different pipes that come in. Unfortunately, this was built a long time ago, so that wasn't done. So that's the reason why we have to do this. And we've been telling you this for the 5 years I've been here, 5.5 years, that this is coming. So the bad news is that we're going to have to start paying for it. So that's the downside. And then also Wheeler, for those of you who live on Wheeler, we did do a 1-inch overlay to get rid of the potholes because we knew that this was coming, and we didn't want to do a construction project back when you had all those pothole issues, knowing that we're going to have to tear it up and redo Wheeler again. So we did get you through, and you will see that Wheeler will be under construction to do this, and but you will have a whole new road as well as part of that. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Compass.
A couple quick questions. I realized while sitting through this that I've made an assumption that spur 2 is a 36-inch, but I guess I just have to ask, is spur 2 a 36-inch?
Spur 2 is a 36-inch connection.
Okay, so capable of the same transmission. And then you said something towards the end where I thought was interesting, that Oak Lawn is currently capable of delivering without the use of our MPS. What benefits do we get from having our MPS and not treating our MPS as essentially another redundant system to theirs?
So Oak Lawn will only allow that under emergency conditions. They will not allow it to use it on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you, Kashid.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
Would you said Joliet, would they buy us, would we be a wholesaler to Joliet?
No, they're just, they'll be passing through our town, so, because that's their, hopefully it is part of their route, based on what I know now. It's part of their route, but their wholesaler is the City of Chicago.
We're not building the pump system to supply anyone else like Oak Lawn or anybody like that.
And it's interesting, on the Joliet issue, the whole reason they're about to spend $1 billion for a transmission line directly from Joliet to the City of Chicago is because their well water, their aquifers are running dry. So this is just, it demonstrates another benefit that we have access to this wonderful resource of Lake Michigan.
And obviously the western part of the country is we hear it suffering from a drought, blah, 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 but what it's really suffering from is three times as many people as what it had about 35 years ago or so. And that is drawing a lot more water off of the system. So while they may be going through a drought, they've gone through droughts before, and it's not just a drought issue. It is absolutely just a demand on the system, and they haven't figured out how to deal with it.
And Mayor, you may have heard or read about Jackson, Mississippi, where they have severe water issues now, and one of the major reasons for them to have this condition is they did not have water redundancy. The system redundancy was not there.
And we also have the benefit, everyone should know, we don't have the lead pipe issue. There's a lot of issues we don't have, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the other thing that we see nationally, we in the Great Lakes region are very lucky in this regard relative to the rest of the world. And we go back to the drought condition in the West. So I believe it was in the 90s, they closed all their desalination plants because they had so much water. So not exactly great planning. So, in this case, we're planning appropriately for our use, but something to be, it's going to be a worldwide problem, maybe not here, but it's going to be everywhere. So something to consider.
Water meter replacement plan presentation.
Good job, Chrissy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, I'd like to kind of jump off from what Krishida was talking a little bit about, is Lake Michigan water allocation. And in 2021, the IDNR, who is responsible to managing that allocation, reached out to all the people who do get water and they noted that they would be decreasing our village water. Obviously, we talked about Joliet. So they're reallocating some of those water allocations to other municipalities that are requesting it. So from our perspective, some of our percentage, our amount of water allocation has been reduced because of Joliet and other communities. But obviously, Orland hasn't finished growing, right? So we did put a response back stating that we have to accommodate the growth still yet in the village. And they did adjust the numbers slightly, but currently those are the numbers that we have gotten from IDNR. Which then goes back to, we just want to encourage our residents to always manage and minimize their water usage because it helps keep our numbers low. She cheated. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the piece of water meters. And Mike Kenny is here with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about, earlier we put out an RFP, and we were looking for Baxter and Woodman to actually look at 4 things. One is to evaluate our system and to determine if there's any things that we can do and improve. The next aspect of it was to help us put together RFPs for the meters, as well as the installers who put the meters in the homes. And lastly, help us put together the actual and oversee that process as the meters are being installed. So with that, next slide. Just a little bit background. We have about 23,000 meters that we have to replace. A good percentage of them are residential. And some of the older ones are prone to slow down. And I would just say to anybody who asks this question, meters never slow down in favor of the village. They always are in favor of the resident or the commercial business or industry out there. So part of this process for the meters is to evaluate how we can improve. In 2021, we talked a little bit about how we are getting a new system with our enterprise system. And in order to have good data, we need to switch from a program where we had about 7 to 8 year cycle to a single replacement of meters. And based on that plan, we put together this RFP and we went to evaluate our system. So non-revenue water. Water purchased is what we get from Orland. And then what is sold is what we are noting with our water meters. And so there is some non-revenue water. As you can see, we actually did a better job in 21 to really tackle leaks or non-revenue generating items out there. Better reporting for the meters as well. And so we try to look at that, but one of the aspects of this is the meters. The meters are slowing down, and we're not truly reporting exactly how much water is being used throughout the village. Next slide, please. So we have been actually replacing at the village with a census meter. It's called an iPearl meter. It's a smart meter. We also have the infrastructure, the AMI reading from our water towers, able to read the meters and get that data every month. And so we have replaced with this new type of meters about 3,500 meters so far with in-house staff. And we're using that to better collect and report on our water meters. I'm going to turn it over to Mike. He took it from this spot, knowing all that information of the background of what we did in the past, and then they evaluated, are we doing the right thing? Is the meter and the system that we have the right the right system to be set up? And so Baxter and Woodman did that. So I'll turn it.
Thanks, Joel.
I think Nicole's pushing it for you, so
Okay.
just say next slide.
All right, thanks. My name is Mike Kenny. I'm a project manager at Baxter & Woodman. As Joel was saying, we took a look at the census iPearl. That's a residential meter in the 3/4 inch, 1 inch size, most common size found in residential homes. In 2012, the village did an internal review of water meters. Water meters went from a mechanical to more of an electrical, less components that wear and tear, that don't clog up and not read water usage. With the electronic meters, the census uses an electromagnetic technology which can read during multiple different conditions. And we took a look and compared these to 2 of the leading competitors, Neptune and Badger. We rated the meters based on different criteria. The biggest is, what can they read to? The hot topic of water meters is how low of a flow can they read. So typical mechanical meters, you can be missing flushes of your toilet. If a kid leaves the sink on a little bit in the middle of the night, a lot of those weren't getting picked up, especially with meters that were older and the mechanical's not reading them. So you multiply that by all your residents, it turns out to be a pretty large number. The census iPearl, it can read down to 1/4 gallon. Like I said, that's going to pick up your toilet flushes, your sinks left on. A couple other items too are the pressure drop across the meter. Going back to the conversation with pump stations, believe it or not, the pressure drop going through a water meter can affect the pumps in town with all the different water meters that are out there. With less mechanical components, the census iPearl is able to have a negligible water drop from the entrance to the exit of the water meter. Another important item here is the census iPearl is tamper resistant. The register that actually accounts for reading the water usage is internal, whereas some other are external, and I've seen people get creative about removing the register at certain times so water can't be accounted for, or actually rerouting the water around there. And then another leg up that Census had on Neptune and Badger is with the AMI system that's already in place here in the village, it will actually alert Public Works or the billing staff that there's no water in the pipe or that the meter's not reading. That could be multiple reasons. Someone decided to reroute their water service, or there's a break and pressure dropped so low that the meter can sense that there's no water there. Doing an apples to apples comparison between the three, meaning we looked at the residential impact that the 3/4 inch and 1 inch meter would have. Census did come as the lowest cost. We did take a look at this from taking a step back, like disregarding that the village has already been using the Census iPearl to give it a non-bias look at what is going on. An important note with Census too is they recently have updated their warranty to a 15-year full warranty and a 5-year prorated, whereas the competitors Badger and Neptune are still a 10-year full warranty with a 10-year prorated warranty. So I have to give some kudos here to the village staff that had the insight to look ahead with Census's AMI system, which is advanced metering infrastructure. This allows village staff not have to drive every block of the town and collect water meter data, through a truck anymore. The system can pick up meter reads from anywhere. They're on telephone poles up on the water towers. They can read your billing rates, and it's easier to go through the system. That way it gives instantaneous feedback. The Census iPearl is one type of meter that's used here in town, but the FlexNet system here is able to use advanced meters such as the Ally meters that I will touch on here in a bit. The FlexNet system is actually able to use these advanced meters to remotely shut off water users if you have frequent flyers who aren't paying. They also can touch on pressure drops in town so they can be used for leak detection, which also goes along with non-revenue water. They can also monitor temperature, which is important for contamination. You don't want your water getting too warm. It can breed contamination within it. So we are currently working along with Census to use this AMI system and the new water meters that will be installed as part of the project to integrate this with the billing system to make billing easier and potentially on a monthly basis. We did take a look at the village ordinances as part of this project just to ensure there would be no hurdles to jump over that are currently in place to not allow for, you know, the full meter replacement as far as who, what the residents own versus what the village owns. There's nothing that we currently see that would prohibit this program from going in place. We are planning on doing this in a phased area. We have 6 areas broken out on the map there in the different colors. This is so one part of town can be aware of what's going on and we're not scattered all throughout town. And that goes into public outreach and education. You know, posting on the village website and setting up signs actually in the front of subdivisions will allow residents to be aware of this coming, including door hangers and door knocks if, you know, if we're not able to get a hold of residents. All that communication is going to be coordinated with the village and is going to be included in our RFP to choose the installer. For the contractor bidding criteria, I mean, we're going to be inside every home and business in the village, so it's important that we are going to get a quality contractor who's going to be respectful of the residents' homes, the businesses here in the village. So we want to make sure that we have strict criteria, but also allow the proper contractors to bid and provide a proposal. So our schedule, we currently are in the meter evaluation presentation, and we are currently working on the RFP for the meters from Census, and we are currently working on the RFP for the installation, which is going to be presented next month and then will be awarded here in November, with the goal of starting the installations here in 2023 and running through the end of 2024. So you will notice here that the water meter equipment cost is higher than the previous slide for the Census equipment. That is after having conversations with village staff with the apples to apple comparison. Approximately 2,200 Ally meters were determined to be needed or wanted to be used in the village to provide better service, reduce time on public works staff for those frequent flyers that might have to be visited, or for areas that, you know, the water services, there's no B-box visible or can be found to easily shut off water. Those Ally meters will also provide that redundant look and extra measure for water loss. So for instance, if there was, I guess, you know, right out here, if there was an Ally meter in use and there was a water main break, Joel and his public works team could pull open their phones, pull open their iPhones or computers, and they would be able to locate where the pressure drop is more readily than they have been before. So that apples to apples comparison we added in the Ally meters, which brings the equipment total to $4 million. And then our approximate installation cost right now is $3.6 million. The important part to note here is with ever-changing construction climates, material changes, pricing is subject to change, and we have already seen some increases in meter procurement. So we're here at a good time before prices continue to rise even higher. But just to wrap it up, as Joel was saying, the most important part of this is we're going to be capturing the non-revenue water, which a lot is, slipping by in any community who's utilizing a lot of mechanical meters. And these electric meters moving to the future here is going to be able to capture that, which in turn will help with the LMO2s to show the IDNR that there is not a lot of water leaving the village without being accounted for.
Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Compass.
So just a quick question on the warranty on the devices. When you did the apples-to-apples comparison, I went a little fast, so I didn't catch it. Did I hear right that Census is about half the life cycle warranty of the others?
So Census has a 15-year full warranty.
Okay.
With a 5-year prorated. Then most of the other competitors, including Badger and Neptune, they're a 10-year full replacement with a 10-year prorated.
Okay, much better. I thought I heard it the opposite, so that scared me for a second. And then just a quick question to Joel. I know we put out the percentage of non-revenue water, but do we understand what that means in terms of what that revenue total might be, approximately?
Non-revenue?
Yeah.
What percentage for the?
Like what does that turn into?
We can pull that information, but I'm sure we don't have it handy today.
Understood.
So.
We know of one break that we had that was in a marshy area, and we didn't even know the water was in that marsh area, and we didn't know about the water loss for quite a while. And so that was one of the...
Right, we know what the percentages are. We don't have the dollar value at this bit, but we can get it.
Yeah, no worries. And then last question. I know we talked about the communication plan with the residents. I think I'd like to see something in there as well as far as residents that have the mechanical, because obviously we're going to be fixing some of this, right, where they've been, undercharged. There's possibly going to be some surprises when they get charged for their actual usage. So I just want to make sure that we have a plan in place for how we're going to let them know, so it's less of a shock when that meter gets replaced.
Good point, definitely.
Any other comments? We'll move on to the next one.
2023-2027 utility rate study presentation.
Nicole's driving.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. So to bring it all together, we want to talk about the actual rate study that was completed. About a year ago, we went out to RFP and we selected New Gen Strategies and Solutions, and they were actually a successor firm to the firm that conducted our rate study in 2015. So Eric and his team had very good familiarity with the Village of Orland Park water system. Actually did a rate study last time and again this time. So since approval, finance department staff, public works staff, and Eric and his team met on a number of occasions, mostly through Zoom, and really dug way into the details of our rate structure and looked at lots of different financial forecasts. We also brought in our financial advisors, PMA, to talk about our debt structure, so you'll see more about that in the presentation to come. I'm going to turn it over to Eric and Tia for the next couple of slides, and they'll start talking about their approach to the engagement.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and trustees. My name is Eric Colokia with New Gen Strategies and Solutions. I was the project manager for the rate study. Today we're going to talk briefly about our firm, just very briefly. We'll talk about some of the methodology and guiding principles of the study, what we thought about while we developed your forecasted rates. Expenses and revenues, you've heard about a lot of capital investment projects. We also included operations, estimates of operating increases, and reserve contributions. We'll talk about our recommendations when it comes to a financial plan for all three utilities, the water, the sewer, and the stormwater utility. And of course, at the end of the day, what really matters to people is what's the impact on their bill. We'll talk about the impact on your customer bills and how they compare to other communities. So our firm exclusively works with municipal water, electric, natural gas utilities throughout the country. We have a client base in the Chicagoland area. Our focus is what we call strategic intent. Why are we doing the things we are doing financially with our rate structures, with our financial forecasting? So we work closely with the village staff and with PMA to develop the forecast that you're going to see. A typical rate study has four components, 4 steps of the process. The first is what we call the revenue requirement. These are the dollars, the expenses. What does it cost to run our system now, and what will it cost in the future? Forecast, we did a 10-year forecast. We'll talk about the next 5 years in this presentation. It includes operating, capital, debt service, and with a focus on financing of those capital improvements for water reliability and regional water security. We also look at your customers. How many customers do you have now? How many customers in the future? That is the base over which we can spread those costs, and we develop rates that meet the revenue requirement. That's the third step, developing a financial plan. So we look at your current rates and fees. We look at how they may need to increase in the future. We look at sustainability in not having large one-time increases in rates. We want to look at reserve balances, how we manage those balances going forward so that we have a smooth forecast so that people understand the incremental changes in their rates. And the last is utility pricing. Those are specific rates for all of your customer classes, all your use types, that we forecast that when you charge those rates to your customers, you're reasonably going to generate the revenue you need to run the system. There are two industry manuals that define these processes. The first is the American Water Works Association Manual M1, Principles of Water Rates, Fees, and Charges. The second is the Water Environment Federation, Financing for Wastewater Systems. The first principle is these systems, as utilities, are financially self-sufficient. The users that use the service pay for the service. We don't have cross-subsidies between the systems, and we don't have cross-subsidies between other village funds. We'll talk about that in a bit. We want to keep our rates and fees low over time. We don't want to have very low rates because we don't make investments in the system. You can cut your capital plan, your rehabilitation in half, and keep your rates low, but that's not benefiting anybody in the long term. So we look over a long-term period to make sure our rates are as low as possible over time. And the bottom line is someone must pay. It's a zero-sum game. Any discount or rebate we give to one group of customers, your costs are essentially fixed, so that revenue needs to be made up with other customers. So we look at the entire system and an equitable way to spread those costs over your customers. Do you want to talk about this?
So throughout this process, we used a number of critical assumptions. We looked at our actual data that we had, but other key assumptions that went into the mix was our 5-year capital plan. So a year ago, we started with our ClearGov capital budgeting, and we utilized that data, including information from like the meter replacement program and such. We also know some information from the village of Oak Lawn. Kershid was talking about the debt related to the redundant water supply. While it's not technically village debt, it is a required contribution. We are contractually required to pay the village of Oak Lawn, and in some years it's over $4 million per year for that particular contractual obligation. So we factored in all of those known costs, and including some capital improvements such as the meter conversion, the water main, several water main replacement programs, including along 143rd Street, stormwater projects at Schussler Park and at Centennial West, and our stormwater pond maintenance program. So all of those were factored in on the capital expenditure side to know what kind of revenue was required. This is a graph of the capital spending that we actually looked out 10 years on the spending side just to make sure that that the trends were going in the right direction. But as you can see, we identified the blue graph, portions of the graph that relates to pay-as-you-go spending. So we got capital expenditures that are happening throughout the year on a pay-as-you-go basis. The orange and the yellow both relate to the Tinley Creek project. So the orange is the grants funding that we are receiving from the MWRD, and the orange relates to bonds that we issued in 2021 that the remaining funds relate to that particular program. The gray bars relate to new bond issues that are planned and projected throughout the term. We met with, as I mentioned earlier, we met with PMA, our financial advisors, to really optimize when we should be borrowing as it relates to our capital plan to ensure that we're maximizing the use of our dollars. So the capital spending has some funds, about $5 million in 2022 for the meter replacement program. We actually accelerated about $4 million from 2023 to 2022. It's not reflected on this graph. That's the borrowing for the stormwater for Schussler Park and for Centennial Park West. But this also calls for borrowing about $4 million in each of the next 3 years, and $9 million in 2026, and I think $12 million in 2029. So that was all optimized with our financial advisor. This shows the other side of that equation. This is actually the debt service payments. And the orange represents the existing debt service payments, and the blue represents the new bonds, the repayment on the new bonds that will be issued over the term. The gray, that represents our capital contributions, or our debt service contributions to the Village of Oak Lawn in order to pay for that redundant water supply. So as you can see, those grow very significantly over the coming years, and they remain very high, around $4 million or so for the next several years after that.
Thank you. On this graph here, you can see the forecasted revenue requirements from all of our analysis of your O&M and all the other capital projects. If you'll look, the majority of the increase is due to two main factors. You have the cash that's funding your capital projects. As you'll see, that continues to grow. It goes down 1 year just a little bit. And then in the green, you have the water security debt contribution. So these are your main contributing factors to the increase in revenue requirement. And then you'll see a little bit of a gray line there with new village debt, the yellow representing existing debt, and then this light blue will be your operating expenses, with the dark blue being water purchases. We do have a little bit of an increase projected in the water purchases as well, but it's not contributing significantly to the overall increases. And then here, on this one, you'll see just a few of the statistics associated with your system, so the number of customer units and their percentage of the whole, as well as the water demand associated with each demographic and their percentage of the whole. One of the study recommendations is to levy a service charge per customer unit. Currently, it is per account. And so, for example, if you have an apartment complex that has 5 units, each of those units would be levied a service charge on a bi-monthly basis. The study does assume a small amount of growth in customers related to the development of Orland Ridge, but it doesn't assume any increase or decrease in a per capita customer demand. Eric?
Thank you, Tia. On this slide, we show 2 charts. The left-hand side is, again, that revenue requirement chart, but now with a line. That line represents the total revenues coming into all 3 utility systems based on your fiscal 22 budget and a forecast at existing rates. This is if you include all those expenses and you make no changes to your water, sewer, or stormwater rates. That decrease from 22 to 23 is the removal of non-utility fund revenues, home rule sales tax. Coming into the funds in fiscal 22, we remove that in every year of our forecast, so that's that decrease in revenue. On the right-hand side is the total water and sewer fund balance based upon this forecast of expenses and revenues. Under no changes in rates, you can see that the fund balance falls below your minimum reserve policy and is completely exhausted within 2 fiscal years. Our recommendations for a 5-year period is to increase rates in several increments over those 5 years. This slide shows the first increment of those recommended rate increases by each of the fees that you charge your water, sewer, and stormwater customers. I'll start with the easy ones. Your sewer utility is financially stable. It is financially stable. We're not recommending any increases in your sewer utility rates. Your stormwater utility, on the bottom there, we're recommending a one-time increase of 89 cents to your current rate to account for those stormwater capital projects that are planned for the next 5 to 10 years. We've split the water rate increase between your fixed component and your volumetric component of your water rate. You charge a fixed service charge on a bi-monthly basis per customer unit. We're recommending you increase that rate by $1 in the first increment of our rate increase for fiscal year 23. That is split between the costs going to regional water security, specifically the debt service for those capital projects and water purchases, and other costs related to the village's distribution system, customer service, and things like that. The volumetric rate, you have a tiered water rate. We're showing the first 2 tiers here. So the first 7 units of usage for your customers, we're recommending you increase the cost of that water by 64 cents per unit. And that is almost evenly split, again, between the costs going to regional water security and the costs of the village itself. The second tier, we're recommending an 80-cent increase, and again, it's almost evenly split between those two components. You have two further tiers, we're recommending similar increases to those tiers. These are those two charts again, but now we assume that you adopt the recommended increases in each of the next 5 fiscal years. The green line added to that chart shows the total fund revenue under that assumption, increasing your water, sewer, and stormwater fees based on our recommendations. And the chart on the right now shows the fund balance forecast, assuming those increases. We looked on a long-term period. You saw some of the spikes in the capital plan and some of the debt service you plan to smooth out those spikes. Given this 5-year increase forecast, we forecast a stable and balanced fund balance maintained above your minimum reserve policy of 90 days of O&M expenses. This is just a slide showing the specific recommended water rates. I won't go through them in detail, but you can see the bi-monthly service charge and the volumetric rates for all of your customer classes. Again, this is your sewer and stormwater rates, the specific rates, assuming you adopt the rate increases recommended in our report.
So our water, despite increases in cost, really is a great value. 1,000 gallons, as Christine mentioned, that probably lasts one person about 10 days worth of water in their house. So what can the equivalent of 1,000 gallons of water, what can you buy with that same amount of money? Well, we found, or Eric and his team found, you can buy about 2 1/3 Dunkin' Donuts large coffees and just 2.5 cans of beer. About 1.5 gallons of gasoline, although that changes almost every day now, 40 half-liter bottles of water. All of that equals 1,000 gallons of water that's delivered right to your home right through your tap. So it really is a great resource to have that's readily available to you. Go ahead. As you can see, even with the recommended rates that are highlighted in red, Orland Park's rate is still among the lowest costs. Only some of the key service provider, the upline service providers. But Orland Park's water rate really remains a good value, and with all of the additional spending for necessary redundancy and capital equipment or capital investment really remains a good value for the residents of Orland Park. With that concludes our presentation. Eric, Tia, thank you. If you have any questions for any of us.
Any questions or comments? I have some comments here. So residents see that, the water rate study doesn't have a lot of good news in it. There's a lot of expense there. But remember, we did say that the bi-monthly bills, you're going to be looking at about a $14 increase, and it's going to be about an $18 increase. So 14 of that, as we said, was going to be this Oak Lawn project. So about half of that 18 is actually the Oak Lawn project. So we run the water system to break even. That includes water mains, delivery, storm sewers, and wastewater. It includes our pond system as well. As shown, as we saw there, the costs are going to go up quite a bit over the next several years. The reasons, I'll try and put some of it in a nutshell here. Almost half of it, like I said, is the water redundancy project that we've been talking about since I got here. We've been letting you know that this is coming, and now it's time we have to start paying it, unfortunately. Our current supply isn't redundant, and this project was approved well before any of us were on the board, and it was appropriate for them to approve it. So it was the right thing to do. But without that redundancy, we would be at risk of losing our water supply for far longer than we have reserves, and we have way more reserves than most towns, so this was pretty important. Our storm sewer rates are taking a big initial jump in the first year. This is due, frankly, to years of neglect of our retention and detention pond system, and I'm seeing Joel nodding his head. This was another part of the capital projects like our roads and our parks and stuff that were pushed back and kicked down the road for other projects like the Triangle. As you've seen, previously, we have a 5-year plan to address the 300 and some ponds, and the ones that are in the worst shape, and then we'll have a 5-year plan from there, et cetera. But this should put us on a path to making sure that those ponds are properly maintained. Also, our water mains are failing sooner than expected, and I'm going to get some Krashid head nods here, I think. The materials used in the late 80s and early 90s have proven to be defective and not have the useful life that they were expected to have. This is a problem that's a nationwide problem. It's not just an Orland Park problem. And we experienced a lot of growth during that time frame, so we installed a lot during that time frame. You know, in fact, we've replaced some of those already prior to the mains. So right now we're doing mains that were built in the 60s. We're doing. So those were lasting the time they were supposed to. We already replaced, for example, Crystal Tree that was done in the late 80s because of these failures. So that's part of the problem as well. So clearly we need to do it. We saw the water loss issue and we need to solve that problem. So unfortunately, it's just something we have to deal with. The water meter replacement project, which Joel spoke about, we've discussed that before as well, and basically we spread it out too long and kind of kicked things down the road. Again, it was capital projects that were shoved down the road a little bit. This way we'll have this new technology, we'll reduce water loss, and that will help our water usage throughout the village. And I'll give you, quite frankly, all you homeowners, a clearer picture of what you're actually using so you can conserve water. Historically, we've also made some decisions to subsidize our water system with home rule sales tax. Obviously, that's been going on for quite some time, and it's hiding our true costs, the true cost to you using it, which makes it less likely that you're going to conserve it, which we need to do. And it also reduces the money we had available for other capital projects like our parks, like our roads, and those things that have been pushed down the road. So this is mostly a capital-related issue. It's not an operating issue. We operate pretty efficiently. So it's not all bad news, though. As you saw there, other municipalities, except for Oak Lawn and Chicago, and they charge others for water that passes through their system. Our water rates are pretty much lower than everybody else's. So we've still even with these increases, we're still going to be well below average. And we have, as we've talked about before, we don't have the lead issues. We don't have these other replacement issues that many of those communities are going to face, and they're going to have their costs are going to go up dramatically. It's bad news, but better to get a bitter pill with facts and, you know, fully fund this system and let it fund itself as opposed to robbing it from other areas of the village. So it's pretty important. And that, quite frankly, that gives us as taxpayers the visibility of what we're actually using. As we've said before, we run this as break even. We don't do like Chicago does, which is they keep their rates lower for all their residents by passing on the cost to the suburbs. We don't have that option. We don't do that. So these are our true costs. So, but I see that the committee of the whole is going to run very long. I think that's pretty apparent. So what I would suggest that what I'm going to call for is a motion to recess this meeting so that we can, we'll start our Board of Trustees meeting because we do have visitors here to swear into the Technology Commission and the like. And then when that's done, we'll go back and finish the Committee of the Whole and then go back to the board meeting and finish that. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to recess.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. And now I will,
I gotta go get my stuff.
so we're recessed. What are you going to do? Call the regular board meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy. Here. Trustee Katsinas.
Here.
Trustee Malani.
Here.
Trustee Compass.
Here.
Trustee Reardon. Trustee Radiszewski.
Here.
Mayor Pico.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the August 15, 2022 special meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustees special meeting of August 15th, 2022.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Approval of the August 15th, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustee meeting of August 15th, 2022.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Abstain.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Proclamation honoring Park School's 100th birthday.
So today, I'd like to, the Village of Orland Park would like to proclaim and honor Park School's 100th birthday. Whereas in the mid-1800s, Orland Park had only one-room schoolhouses to educate their children. In some instances, teachers offered lessons at farm families' homestead. The Orland School was built in 1892, the same year that the Village of Orland Park was incorporated. The two-room schoolhouse, located along 143rd Street, still stands, but is now extensively renovated private home. And whereas Orland Township attracted an increasing number of settlers from Europe and the eastern United States, more schools were needed that were reasonably accessible to students who traveled by foot or horseback. In the fall of 1922, Orland School moved to the newly built seven-room schoolhouse at 9960 West 143rd Street, a couple blocks west from the original building, and renamed Orland Park School. It was built by famous Chicago architect Alfred Pashley and builder J.W. Mahaffey. And whereas the brick school building was the center of the community in the 1920s and 30s, the new school boasted the best infield in the state. It hosted village baseball games and later high school sports. The Firemen's Carnival and water ball competitions also took place on the school's property. Whereas in 1920, a two-year high school program was introduced in Orland Park and classes were held in the Village Hall. When Orland Park School opened in 1922, it accommodated all grades of students, including high school. In 1938, a third year of high school curriculum was added and available in Orland Park. By 1943, all four grades were taught. High school students remained at Park until 1954, when Carl Sandburg High School opened. And whereas in 1940, James Pomeroy and Civilian Conservation Corps added 2 classrooms as well as the Joliet Limestone Gymnasium at the west of the building, whereas today the original building and limestone gym still stand. In 2014, Park School was designated an Orland Park Historical Landmark. Park School's staff continues to educate the Orland Parks community's children, teaching grades kindergarten through 2nd grade, and now therefore I, Keith Pecaw, Village President of the Village of Orland Park, Illinois, in the counties of Cook and Will, do hereby wish Park School a happy 100th birthday and hereby proclaim Tuesday, September 6th, 2022 as Park School Day in the Village of Orland Park. Any comments? So contrary to popular belief, Bill Healy did not take horseback to the Orland Park School. Park School is turning 100 years ago, and 100 years old. It was 48 years ago that I started going there and attended 3rd through 6th grade. My teachers, Mrs. Martello, Mrs. Koch, Mrs. Shoup, and Mrs. Sullivan, were all critical in helping me become a lifelong learner. It was there that we played tetherball, kickball, dodgeball, when you still could, and basketball in the limestone gym with the old clock that is still there for those who've been there. Believe it or not, I also took cello lessons in the basement under the stage. So over the years, it has changed a lot, but it has been a significant part of the mosaic of Orland Park and an influence on the lives of many of us. Go ahead.
Technology Commission appointment.
Someone? Anyone?
Motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
Move to advise the consent to the appointment of Ramesh Karumanshi to the Technology Commission. Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Technology Commission appointment.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to advise and consent to the appointment of Benjamin Fethen to the Technology Commission. Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. And I understand that people from Park School are here. I will, in just 1 second, we'll call you up, but first we'll take care of swearing in both of our Technology Commission members. If they would come up, please. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I say your name.
I, Redundancy,
Having been appointed to the office of the Technology Commission
having been appointed to the office of the Technology Commission
in the village of Orland Park,
in the village of Orland Park,
in the counties of Cook and Will aforesaid,
in the county of Cook and Will said,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of the Technology Commission
of the office of the Technology Commission
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. Welcome aboard. Technology Commission members, so be careful what you do.
Yeah, right. Welcome to the club.
Thank you very much for this. And now if the folks from Park School would come up. I just want to give you an opportunity to say something as well, but congratulations. And again, I am a Park School alum, so, and I may not be able to have the moment this one, but you're supposed to be over here.
I also had Mrs. Martello.
But now I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. My name is Brian Fogarty. I am the principal of Park School, and thank you for honoring our school tonight. It's an honor to be the principal of Park School and work with the families and the community. And we've done a lot of great things over the past year to celebrate our 100th birthday, and it's just an honor to be a part of Orland Park. And I know one of the teachers that you mentioned I had as well when I was a child, because I went to District 135 too. So thanks for having us this evening, and it's an honor to be a part of Park School and Orland Park.
Thank you very much. We did things a little bit out of order so that those of you both from Park School and the two Technology Commission members, again, thank you very much for stepping up and volunteering, but so that you didn't have to sit through another hour plus of the Committee of the Whole and could get on with your nights. So thank you.
Accounts payable approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to approve the accounts payable from August 16th, 2022 through September 6th, 2022 in the amount of $2,360,214.78.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Consent agenda.
Point of
I
order.
will now entertain a motion to recess the Board of Trustee meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recess the Board of Trustee meeting and reopen the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. As we just did that, we're good, right? Yep. All right, training resources.
Training resources for Orland Park Leadership Development Program.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve proposals with the following vendors. Thayer Leadership for one cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $56,680. One Positive Place for one cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $52,500. River Strategies for media and presentation training in 2022 in an amount not to exceed $24,995. The Ken Blanchard Companies for one cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $35,760. Crucial Learning for one cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $24,818, and Spark Productivity for one cohort in 2022 and a second cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $67,000, and authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second. Any comments or questions? So I'm going to make some comments here and then make a suggestion. So I'm in full support of providing resources for leadership training to our leaders throughout the village. However, I really want to make sure they're implemented. And what I've seen to date, I see a lot of plan building, writing papers, documentation for leadership training, and we've implemented some of it, but if you implement too much, too many leadership improvements, it's a tough time taking hold because people get distracted. I would rather do less and implement it than overload the team with plans. With that said, I think a lot of these things are tools that are good. Personally, I'm not inclined to approve their leadership program yet at this point. I know we've delayed it a little bit, but I would almost say let's just delay it until, and I think we should do it, but I think we should delay it until we see that the other things that we're doing are taking hold. So I really want to see implementation. So as you know, I'm a big fan of, George, you talked about the Eisenhower matrix, and I know that I showed it to you before you ever called it the Eisenhower matrix, but urgent versus important is something that, and we need to start embracing that, I think, before we move too far along. I also like the situational leadership model. I think that's a really good model for learning, and that's in here. I think that's enough for us to chew on for a while. It's a lot. It's a lot to absorb. It's a lot to implement. I think once we start seeing that absorption and that implementation of those concepts, then we can approve the Thayer leadership at another time. And even if that delays till 2024, I'm okay with that. So that's my personal opinion. I'm happy to hear from the board members if they agree or not. But I would entertain a motion to strike the Thayer leadership proposal from this motion and do the remainder of it.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
I move to amend the motion to remove Thayer leadership for one cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $56,680.
Second.
And any discussion on the Thayer leadership motion? Any other opinions? Okay, so call the roll on the amendment.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
I abstain. I have a conflict in this whole area. I have a business relationship, and I'm
Well, you don't have
with Thayer.
you don't have one with Thayer.
Okay, I'll say aye.
Okay.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radoszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. So amendment carries 6-0. Is there any other discussion on the main motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
No, I'd just like to state that I do agree with your thoughts on this. I 100% in support of the leadership program. I think we've been advocating for this for quite some time. I think there's a lot to be said for how much you can learn in the classroom and how much you need in terms of time afterwards to install best practices and really put it into use. A lot of what you learn in a classroom, I think they say it's about 10% that you keep unless you practice it. So I think it makes sense to put some time in between these courses, but otherwise wholeheartedly endorse these programs overall.
Okay. Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
I abstain. I've got a business relationship with one of the vendors.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radoszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
cybersecurity assessment and network security monitoring services.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani.
Move to recommend to the Village Board to approve a contract with Securance Consulting for a not-to-exceed amount of $42,904, and I move to recommend approving a one-year contract with Computer Aid Incorporated with the option to renew for years 2 and 3 for the annual not-to-exceed amount of $211,298.58, and recommend authorizing the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Well, I guess first, if you got a presentation, go ahead and give the presentation first.
Sure. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Mayor, residents, and staff. Just want to provide you a brief summary of kind of what our process was going through this RFP. This is the RFP for cybersecurity assessment and network security monitoring. Originally, there were 3 distinct components, really 3 projects in one. They each could stand on their own. We made the decision to combine them together, and they were included in Exhibits A, which was the cybersecurity assessment, Exhibit B, which was network security monitoring, managed services, and Exhibit C, which was help desk managed services. The RFP was issued in September of last year, 21. Vendor proposals were received in October of 21. 27 vendor proposals were received overall. The evaluation was delayed, and that was due to a lack of IT network resources as well as competing projects. Exhibit C was canceled in 22 because it was determined it was not needed. It was primarily targeted toward police for providing help desk services 24/7, round the clock, 365. We reopened evaluation of vendor proposals in May and June, and talked with vendors, sent them notices that we were reinitiating the project. They responded with their interest and their ability to hold pricing from the original proposal. We shortlisted vendors, 5 for Exhibit A, 4 for Exhibit B. Crope pulled out of Exhibit B because they could not provide those services. They didn't have the resources available. Each of the finalists presented their proposals during a 2-hour interview. So it was over 16 hours of interviews that we held. After those interviews, we requested best and final offers, and we also refined the scope for Exhibit A and eliminated some components such as the physical security assessment, the HIPAA assessment, as well as PCI, payment card industry assessment. The reason why we decided to pull that was we're in the process of consolidating our payment processing, and it really didn't make any sense to do an assessment for that based on our existing payment processors. Then we scored those proposals and submitted our recommendation. Our recommendation is for Exhibit A, which is the cybersecurity assessment, is to go with Securance Consulting. They're a firm out of Florida. They're the highest rated interview of all the proposals. Excuse me. Their proposal was outstanding as well as their interview. It was very much tailored to village requirements. It was not canned. It was very well done. They were the second lowest cost proposal. They also beat out their competitors because they were willing to come on site, or they just offered right off the bat to come on site for 80% of their on-site work. Most of the other competitors had much lesser percentages that they were willing to come on site for. They also did a lot of local municipal projects, and the references were very high. So they've done St. Charles, Schaumburg, and some other local municipalities. For Exhibit B, we recommend Computer Aid. Now for Exhibit B, The three proposers that were finalists are large consulting firms or IT services firms that subcontracted out for this particular service, which was managed detection and response services. So Computer Aid, which is a very large international computer services firm, subcontracted out to Elemetrics to provide these services. They were, again, the highest rated interview of their competitors. They came on site for their interview, had their whole team there. They also performed a demo of their platform, which the others did not perform. It was much tailored to village requirements. Why their competitors were more of a canned interview, and they were mostly interested in selling products rather than providing services to the village. Elemetrics provided highly certified staff, extensive public sector experience. Their platform, Active Defense, was highly rated by Gartner and so forth. Their quick 2-week startup, as well as they offered, because of the high price of their services, they were the highest priced of the three. They offered a 30-day trial. They were willing to do a 1-year contract with optional second and third-year options. Their original pricing was based on 5 years, and they were willing to adjust it accordingly. This is a quick overview of, this was included in your item, in your agenda packet, just providing an overview of all the cost comparisons. As you see, for Exhibit A, the cybersecurity assessment, Securance landed right, was the second lowest at $42,904. For Exhibit B, for network security, managed detection and response, Computer Aid ended up on the higher end of things, and so forth. Questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Milani.
More than anything, I want to say thank you, David, to you and to staff for putting together such a thorough process of doing this on such an important topic. I think you guys covered all the bases, and it's been reviewed again, went through commission, and I believe that you found an adequate solution here. So thank you for putting the effort into this.
Any other comments? And the one question is, Technology Commission, this was their recommendation as well?
Yes. Yes.
So, okay, great. So you should probably include that in your presentation.
Okay.
So in the future. Okay, any other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Cultural Center decommissioning.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Campos.
I move to recommend to the Village Board to decommission the Cultural Center effective January 1st, 2024, and move to recommend offering the Cultural Center for sale at an amount approved by the Village Board, and if not sold after a period of 6 months, to demolish the facility, converting the site along with the former RDC site and Dugan Park into a more fully developed park site. I recommend authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract for the sale and/or demolition of the Cultural Center, subject to village attorney review.
Second.
I'm going to give some background here for the public and for the board, although the board knows most of this. So when we did our facilities review, the Cultural Center, it was determined it was not really needed, and it would cost a fair amount of money to bring it up to standards. At about the same time, we were made aware of the needs of District 135 for space for early education. We actually approached them to give them that space, as well as take over our preschool. The preschool was not cost effective for them, so we took the requirement to take the preschool off the table. But we also are aware the public does not like the idea of mixing, pre-K students with junior high students. I tend to agree with them. I think the village board tends to agree with them. So for that reason, we offered to sell the Cultural Center to District 135 for $1. But with that, we wanted a couple of other considerations. The first of which was to agree with our TIF modifications and the new TIF for the upcoming downtown project. These modifications also benefit District 135, so it seemed to be win-win. Modifying the TIF, as we suggested, would allow District 135 and other taxing bodies to receive the full taxes from 9750 several years earlier than they would have otherwise, and which for District 135 amounts to a few $1,000,000, which could have been used to pay for the cultural center improvements that were needed. So that's why we did it. Additionally, without the new TIF, as we know, we've talked about this through the MDA, the project cannot be completed. And that's just a fact. There's not enough time in the remaining TIF to provide the incentives required. And nobody here, nobody at I don't think at any of the taxing bodies were there when this was all first put in place, but that's just the reality. And, you know, without the new TIF, the land will sit empty and the village owns it and there's no property taxes from it. So it's not like there's anything to get when it's all over with. Additionally, every other taxing body, except for District 135, has informally agreed to the restructuring and new TIF in principle. So not formal agreements yet, but at least informally they've agreed that this makes sense. The other condition was to allow us to fix the southern part of the John Humphrey complex. And that would make 2 full-size baseball/softball fields that are fully usable, which they really aren't right now because of their size, and a soccer field. Since District 135 has started playing interscholastic soccer, we took that into consideration. The only thing we asked for in return for this, and it's about a $3 million project, was a 30-year intergovernment agreement to use, maintain, and schedule the fields, with the schools getting priority. This is the same IGA that we've pretty much had for the better part of the last 40 years, I think, except for 2 years when there was a political dispute between the village and District 135. Well, we want to take that off the table so that if we're going to spend $3 million of village money. You know, given that we would be spending about $3 million of funds, this seems like a pretty reasonable request. In total, we offered the cultural center over $3 million in property taxes, $3 million in field improvements, and in return, we simply want no objections to the TIF and a 30-year IGA to use the fields. Frankly, I think all of us agree, if District 135 doesn't want the cultural center, so be it. And as far as dealing with the public and the mixing of schools and ages and all that, that's up to them. So we'll give it 6 months to try and sell it. Otherwise, we will demolish it and make it a part of the park. We attempted to help and provide another option for District 135 and for their board, but it is a decision that's totally up to them. As for the remainder of our offer, they are aware that it still stands. We still need to restructure the TIF. They can still take that money. We still are offering to redo the fields, but we do need an IGA in exchange for that, and that just protects the village taxpayers' interests. We're doing this because it's the right thing to do for the residents of the village, and even if the district doesn't want the additional space for the cultural center and a separate location for the early childhood education, we still think the rest of it's the right thing to do, so that's what we're doing. So that gives you some background on this. And we'll have that 6 months to sell it. We'll program it for next year, and then we'll plan to take it offline. Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Compass. Aye. Trustee Malani. Aye. Trustee Healy. Aye. Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Ford Utility Police Interceptor purchase.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani.
Move to recommend to the village board to waive bidding requirements and to approve the proposal submitted by Sutton Ford of Matson, Illinois for the purchase of up to 12 2022 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles for an amount not to exceed $462,720.
Second.
And some background on this is that we budgeted for buying all these vehicles in 2022 because we knew there were supply chain problems. Ford had actually said that there will be no deliveries until 2023 and maybe 2024, which was something that we were concerned about way back when we approved these budgets, and I see Joel nodding his head again. We did so in case we were lucky and found vehicles. Well, we hit the jackpot, and we found a place that had vehicles available, so we snagged our 2022 and 2023 vehicles. That's great planning by the staff. I really appreciate it. Also by the board for having the foresight to allocate the monies so that we could do this if we needed to. So job well done, everyone. We got the interceptors that we were otherwise thinking was going to be some time, and we're going to be dealing with older equipment for a while. So good for all. Call the roll.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
Sorry, I just want to add a special thank you to Andy Folkerts, our fleet manager. Really, we got lucky, but it's also hard work, right? I think fleet manager did a tremendous job in finding this for us, so just want to add that.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Non-scheduled citizens and visitors.
So we have a non-scheduled citizen and visitor that came in at, after the time we normally start our board meeting. You can address the board now, or you can wait to the board meeting. It's irrelevant to us, and that's Janet Faulkner. So a reminder, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. I am, excuse me, my name is Janet Faulkner. I am a board member for Manor Homes of Somerset. It's been there through a community that's been there for 35 years. And I'm not sure if I'm in the right place or not, but we thought we've started other places and now we're here. We have issues that are not being addressed, and that's why I am here. One of them is there was some sewer repair done on the property over by our pool, and they were supposed to come back and fix all the damage that they did, and we can't seem to get a hold of anybody to even answer our questions as to when they're coming or what's going to happen. So that's number one. Number two, the pond over by us, a resident of our community volunteered on his own to clear the pond that's over there of all the weeds that have been way overgrown. And when they come to mow the grass, they have left a big outer section away from the pond where it's starting to grow up again. And we want to know why they don't keep that cut for us, especially after this man volunteered to do what was really on Orland property. Do I need to pause or just continue with my...
Just continue with your comments.
Okay. There's, on Montgomery Drive, there's potholes that need to be filled that haven't been filled. We have gone back and forth with people in regards to Gizmo and the building where Carson's was, that whole building. In the back of the building, I know they've gotten better with trying to keep the garbage, but it still blows on our property, and when they clean it up, they don't come up on our property and pick up the garbage that has blown on our property, and it's the same thing on the Gizmo side of the parking lot. Recently, we have had a couple different people on property at times that they should not have been there. One person, him and his wife were sitting in their home, and like 20-year-olds came up on property, opened up their patio door, not knowing they were there, and the homeowner, unit owner, tried to chase them down, and he didn't catch them. And then recently, at a later hour, like 10:30, 11 o'clock, we had a gentleman sitting underneath a tree and no cars in the parking lot. And so we're concerned with the more people that are coming up on our property. Plato's Closet is part of this garbage problem also, and nobody has addressed that. Their garbage can does not get in their enclosure, and their gate doesn't close, and they leave their garbage cans open, and all that is coming on the back side of our property over there. And so we would like that addressed also. And that would be it. I think that's enough.
Thank you very much for your comments. Normally, we don't address residents on these issues, but I think most of these are pretty easy for us to handle. George, our village manager, will get with you on some of these issues. But as far as the sewer repair, I'm not sure that we know about it or don't. So if if we don't know about it, then we can't do anything about it. The pond, though, I will comment on that, more than likely, those weeds are actually native plantings around your pond. And they're actually there to filter the water that comes in off the grass so that it doesn't, it's better for water filtration, it's better for water quality. So actually mowing those weeds yourself is actually something that shouldn't be done because those aren't weeds, they're actually native plantings around the ponds. Now, I'm not sure that that pond fits that bill, but most of our ponds do. So, but we can talk with that one as well. But we won't mow those quote weeds because, again, they're native plantings. They're designed to be around there to stabilize the bank and also to filter the water that comes through there. So that's actually part of naturalizing all of our ponds.
But there is a no trespassing sign that was buried in weeds, you know.
So again, if it's our pond, and we'll confirm that it is. If it's our pond, we do not mow those weeds for that reason because, again, they're not weeds, they're actually there to stabilize the pond. And so when you don't do that, it destabilizes the bank. It also creates water quality issues. Now, that's assuming that it's our pond. We don't own every pond, and I don't know whether we do or not.
On the Carson side?
So, yeah, so I'm just going to respond to everything, and then you can talk to George about all of the issues. But as far as potholes, again, if they're reported, we fill them, so we'll check them and we'll fill them. We fill about 4,000 of them a year, but we don't drive every street to see if there's potholes. We rely on good resident reporting. Back of building garbage, please, anytime you see that, please call. You can call our 311 system. We send our property inspectors out there and code enforcement out there, and we do enforce those and write tickets, and we have had issues with one of those properties in the past. So if they're not doing that, we certainly want to know, and when we do address the issue. Regarding people on properties and in buildings, don't bring it to the board. Call the police. Call the police immediately, and our police respond to everything. So you need to call 911 as soon as that's happening, and our police will get there within minutes. So depending on how close we are. So
I did call on the man sitting under the tree. I called the non-emergency, and by the time they got there, he had left.
Well, again, call 911, and our police chief will talk to you about it, but call 911. Don't call non-emergency. If somebody's on your property and doesn't belong on their property, now there's going to be a discussion later about the Safety Act, and that's going to be a problem next year. But if there's somebody on your property that doesn't belong there, you need to call 911. Calling a non-emergency number is not going to get the response that time that you're looking for or that we want. We do not want someone on your property that doesn't belong there, so call 911. And, you know, again, the same thing applies to that other group. So thank you again for your comments, and Jim, our assistant village manager, will discuss it with you, as well as the chief will discuss the police-related issues after we adjourn the committee of the whole.
May I ask one thing? Is this not the form that I should bring this to?
Well, I mean, you can bring it here, and we're going to address it, but you can also call, you can call our 311 system, call 911. If you report these items, you know, they get logged, the reporting gets logged, and then we can track whether or not it's done or not. So if, you know, bringing potholes to the village hall is,
right.
I mean, to the village board, we fill 4,000 of them a year, and they come from the
Okay, well, the problem with some of these places are we've called these departments and they haven't returned our call.
Well,
and that's the frustrating part about it.
Again, our assistant village manager will talk to you about that.
Okay.
And our police chief will talk to you about the police-related issues.
You.
So thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Campos.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radoszewski. Trustee Radoszewski.
Sounds like we lost her.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. We're adjourned, and we will meet back up here at 8 o'clock to finish the board meeting. Give everyone a chance
Mayor
to
and
take a
Village
break.
Board, I just want to introduce our newest leadership member here. Carrie Haberstich is the Assistant Director of Development Services. Carrie is a... Welcome, Carrie. Carrie has he has years of private and public experience, and she has her master's degree in architecture, so she's we're very happy to have her aboard.
Welcome.
Welcome. All right, see. Trustee Compass.
I move to reconvene the Board of Trustees meeting.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Consent agenda.
Item A, payroll approval. Item C, 2023 Winter Spring Program List Approval. Item D, Orland Park History Museum Night Out Raffle License. Item E, Decision on Appeal, Capone Spoke Shop. Item F, an ordinance amending Title VII Business and License, Chapter 3, Regulations and Specified Businesses, Section 7-3-11, Pool and Billiard Tables of the Orland Park Village Code regarding available pool and billiard licenses. Item G, RFP 21044, Cybersecurity Assessment and Network Security Monitoring Services. Item H, AE Services, Sportsplex Roof Ladders and Gutter Project. Item I, AE Services, Centennial Park Aquatic Center, CPAC Facility Assessment. Item J, Ford Utility Police Interceptor Purchase. Item K, Commonwealth Edison easements for Spur 2. Item L, T-Mobile easement agreement for amendment 7200 Wheeler Drive Water Tower number 5 facility location. Item M, 104th Avenue multi-use path design plans update additional cost. Item N, OSLAD grant Schuylkill Park Phase 2 improvements. Item O, Schuylkill Park drainage study. Item P, Cultural Center decommissioning. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agendas item A and C through P.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Training resources for Orland Park Leadership Development Program.
I will entertain a motion to approve approvals with the following vendors. One Positive Place for one cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $52,500. River Strategies for media and presentation training in 2022 in an amount not to exceed $24,995. The Ken Blanchard Companies for one cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $35,760. Crucial Learning for one cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $24,818. Spark Productivity for one cohort in 2022 and second cohort in 2023 in an amount not to exceed $67,000, and authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
I abstain. I have a business relationship with a vendor.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Utility Division Kubota Steel Wrist Tilt Rotator purchase.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
I move to waive the bidding process and approve the purchase of a steel wrist tilt rotator from Alta Equipment Company of Orland Park, Illinois, in the amount not to exceed $65,950, and authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Grab a mic.
Infrastructure Maintenance Intergovernmental Agreement with Cook County.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to approve intergovernmental agreement with Cook County for the use of $500,000 in maintenance funding for infrastructure within Cook County right-of-way.
Second.
Just so everyone's aware, this is where the Cook County essentially gives us funds to handle maintenance on Cook County roads, and we handle it within the Village of Orland Park. Gives us a little bit more control to make sure the work gets done. Any questions or comments? Call roll.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
A resolution regarding the Illinois Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Safety Act.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
I move to adopt a resolution entitled, "A Resolution Regarding Illinois Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Safety Act," and demand that state lawmakers own up to the mistakes they have made with the erroneously named Safety Act and get rid of the dangerous provisions of the Safety Act that hamper the ability of law enforcement to pursue and arrest offenders.
Second.
And I'm going to read the resolution first and make my comments first, and then the board can clean up anything that I've missed, because I've been dealing with this for quite some time, both legislatively and with other towns as well. But so a resolution supporting continued efforts to resolve public safety concerns with the Safety Act. Whereas the Village of Orland Park's mission is to provide services that ensure a high quality of life, sound fiscal management, and a dynamic business environment while creating an inclusive community that values diversity. And whereas providing a safe and secure community for all Orland Park residents and businesses is a focus of the village's priority plan. And whereas the Orland Park Police Department has been a leader in police training, policy and practice, accountability and transparency. And whereas the village values public engagement and stakeholder involvement to ensure all perspectives are considered in the development of legislation. And whereas on January 22nd, 2021, the Illinois Safety, Fairness, and Equity Today Act, Safety Act, was signed into law, which imposes significant changes impacting many aspects of criminal justice system, including pre-arrest diversion, policing, pre-trial sentencing, and corrections. And whereas the Safety Act was poorly drafted, nearly 800 pages, and passed in the middle of the night with little to no public debate. And whereas the state legislature has since made a handful of changes to the Safety Act, but there are still many provisions in the sweeping new law that are not workable and or create public safety concerns. And whereas the law abolishes cash bail as of January 1st, 2023, that all defendants charged with criminal acts should be released from custody without posting monetary bail, which will cause major public safety issues. And whereas violent offenders who are released on electronic monitoring and choose to violate the terms of their release have to be in violation for 48 hours before law enforcement can act. Whereas this denies crime victims their constitutional rights from Article 1, Section 8.1 of the Illinois Constitution, codified in the Rights of Crime Victims and Witnesses Act, that mandates that crime victims shall have the right to have their safety and that if their families considered in denying or fixing the amount of bail, determining whether to release the defendant, and setting conditions of release after arrest and conviction. And whereas eliminating bail not only contradicts previously established and superior law, it places crime victims at a greater risk to be re-victimized and unnecessarily subjects witnesses to threats and intimidation. And whereas the law severely weakens the habitual crime statutes and three-strike sentencing laws, making it harder for our criminal justice system to keep repeat violent offenders off the streets and behind bars. And whereas the village worked with the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police to share public safety concerns about the Safety Act after its initial release and during consideration of subsequent trailer bills. And whereas the village supports certain elements of the Safety Act and has already implemented elements including body cameras and use of force training, and whereas the Safety Act contains several elements that impact the ability of the village to most effectively provide police services, including, but not limited to, unreasonably limiting the imposition of cash bail, unreasonably limiting police officers' discretion to make arrests, imposing unreasonable police certification and decertification standards, and mandating unreasonable custodial accommodations. And whereas this poorly drafted law containing ill-conceived directives would negatively affect the safety of every citizen of our community. And whereas we must stand with the men and women of law enforcement who consistently stand up for us, and we must not allow this law to stand as passed. And whereas there is an opportunity for legislators to continue to work with public safety representatives and all community stakeholders to further amend the Safety Act to address outstanding public safety concerns, and whereas a failure to remove these provisions or repeal the Safety Act prior to January 1st, 2023 will put the safety of law-abiding citizens and police officers at risk. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Orland Park, Cook and Will Counties, Illinois, in exercise of its home rule authority as follows. The Village of Orland Park demands that the state legislators work with public safety representatives and all community stakeholders to fix remaining problems with the Safety Act, including but not limited to unreasonably limiting the imposition of cash bail, unreasonably limiting police officer discretion to make arrests, imposing unreasonable police certification and decertification standards, mandating unreasonable custodial accommodations, unreasonably allowing offenders to violate terms of their release, and violating victims' rights as outlined in Illinois law. The Village of Orland Park demands that these provisions are removed, or that the Safety Act be repealed prior to their implementation on January 1st, 2023. My comments on this: I can't even begin to tell you how dangerous this act is. First, it was passed in the middle of the night with 40 minutes to read an 800-page bill, which is unacceptable. As of January 1st, 2023, the following things will go into effect, and people need to be aware of this. It abolishes cash bail for almost every offense. This includes, but isn't limited to, kidnapping, armed robbery, second-degree murder, drug-induced homicide, aggravated DUI, threatening a public official, and aggravated fleeing and eluding. Offenders released on electronic monitoring have to be in violation for 48 hours before law enforcement can act. They could almost drive to Alaska before we can even look for them. It denies victims their constitutional rights. And keep this in mind, businesses and homeowners: officers will no longer be able to remove trespassers from your residence or your businesses. Someone could decide to live in your shed, and all we can do is give them a ticket. You have to decide what level of force is required to remove them and whether or not it's legal. This is a massive threat to the residents of Orland Park, Cook County, and Illinois. I want to remind voters that several elected officials that will be on the ballot in Orland Park voted for this abomination. Senator Michael Hastings, Senator Emil Jones, and Representative Justin Slaughter all voted to put criminals ahead of the safety of law-abiding citizens and police. In particular, Senator Hastings, who personally told me that that he had a family and that this bill was horrible and there was no way he would vote for it. An outright lie that, in my opinion, disqualifies him to hold his office. I will gladly cast my vote for this resolution and demand the repeal of the Orwellian-named Safety Act. But it doesn't end here. There is currently a bill in front of the House to remove school resource officers from our schools, which means no resource officer at Sandburg High School. The city of Chicago has already done this. I personally don't want to see the city of Chicago become the standard for how we conduct public safety, because they've abandoned their police officers and abandoned their residents and created a war zone full of criminals. There's also a bill to make fentanyl a misdemeanor in this state. And I want to remind you that we have representatives that currently represent us or will represent us potentially in the federal government that voted to not extend the fentanyl ban federally. Fortunately, it passed, but there are people that actually believe that we shouldn't have a ban on fentanyl that currently represent our community. That's just absolutely unacceptable. It's like they won't stop until they destroy our communities and our society. We all need to take a stand against this. This is a very, very dangerous bill. I'll open up the comments to the floor.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
Try to edit my notes in real time. I think to start off, we've said it many times before, but it's always worth repeating. I believe our police department sets the standard of excellence for all others. We're very blessed that we have a very deep well of talented officers committed to serving our village, and that we can so easily promote from within speaks volumes to the training commitment of this department. To the women and men of the Orland Park Police Department, thank you. I hope you know just how much our community appreciates and supports you. But cutting through some of the notes here so I'm not too redundant, I do want to point out on July 4th, Will County State's Attorney stated that of the 640 detainees in the jail, 60 of which have been charged with murder, all of them will have their bonds extinguished in January due to the new pretrial system. This is not a partisan issue. The Will County State's Attorney that I'm speaking of is a Democrat. The DuPage County State's Attorney recently had similar remarks with the 500-some detainees there. He mentioned the higher burden that prosecutors must prove that the accused is a present threat, not to the general public, but to a specific identifiable person. So let me repeat that. It's not if they hold someone, if they represent a danger to the public. The prosecutor has to prove that there's a specific identifiable person that is threatened. So if a man murders his wife in a domestic homicide, To whom then would they prove that he's a danger then, after the fact? Should he be released? Should someone who killed someone in crossfire on a highway be released because the threat was not specific to that person? Since when must acts of evil be specifically targeted to be considered dangerous to our community? Over the past weekend, there was a viral video of an armed mugging that occurred in broad daylight in Lakeview on Sunday afternoon. I won't kid anyone that if those muggers are caught due to the Cook County system, they'll likely be out, but the new system would guarantee it. How could a prosecutor prove that they pose a specific threat to an identifiable person when they certainly did not know the woman that they mugged? The point of bail is to strongly encourage showing up to court. Today, if the defendant is charged with a felony, fails to show up in court, they're charged with another felony offense, one class lower than the original charge. In January, that becomes a misdemeanor. Yet we're supposed to believe that defendants will show up under this new system. How is this fair to the victims of these crimes? But it's not just felonies. As the mayor mentioned, criminal trespass is going to be reduced to a citation. So you might be considering what happens for retail and restaurants. You can also see how this is going to go sideways for you personally. What happens if you return to find someone swimming in your pool? Or worse, what if your teenage child has a stalker that decides to hang out in your backyard and you can't prove the threat? What does that mean for us? Just the tip of the iceberg to a 764-page bill that's since seen some revisions, but not nearly enough. Again, for the representatives and senators that voted for this, why do they feel it necessary to wait until after the election for these provisions to take effect? That's cowardly. I implore our residents to read more about this act, contact your representative and senator, ask if they remove the provisions that endanger the lives of all citizens, especially our law enforcement officers.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani.
I think Mayor Pica and Trustee Campos summed up quite a few of my thoughts. However, I'd like to share a few more things about this law. Here's an interesting one that I found. Suspects will be allowed 3 free phone calls prior to being questioned. I guess that's to get their facts straight. There's been controversial changes to the policies around arrest and release from police custody that could actually place additional stress on our system. And most importantly, there was no funding for training included in this bill for frontline officers. So once again, we have unfunded mandates from our state, and we must foot the bill. The state, in its infinite wisdom, once again in law enforcement, has quickly decided to make the career of a police officer more dangerous while making the career of a criminal easier than ever. And as Mayor Pica mentioned, there was a laundry list of non-detainable offenses that go into effect as part of the Safety Act. So what does that exactly mean? It means that these criminals be allowed to commit crimes and to be charged with these crimes and released without bail. Some of them that he didn't list include arson, burglary, robbery, and intimidation, among the other ones he listed. So I think this paints a pretty good picture of why this law really needs to be reconsidered. And as we've all mentioned in previous meetings, our department goes above and beyond to protect our community, be involved with our community through outreach, and continuously adds new programs to protect and serve Orland Park. The Safety Act laughs in the faces of these officers that provide those services. While it is great that Orland Park has been proactive with our decisions like body-worn camera programs, mental health services, partnerships, and extensive community outreach plans, the Safety Act will do nothing more than place extra strain on our system while providing criminals with more flexibility and privilege. I really hope that our state steps back, reviews the situation, and reconsiders. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case.
Are there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Katsinas.
I think Bill and I are the two, or Trustee Healy and I are the two grandparents. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pica as well. You think of this and the repercussions with kids and your grandkids and the direction these type of acts are having on our society as a whole. This weighs the criminal instead of the victim. The criminals are having more and more rights, where the victims that are getting victimized are just being pushed aside. So as Trustee Campos and Malani said, please reach out to your elected officials, ask them to remove these unbelievable, items on this bill that really, really hurt society as a whole. It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
I found out the other day that I'm an enemy of democracy. And, you know, watching how the governor here and the legislators passed this middle-of-the-night effort, I mean, I guess I'm an enemy of that, too. That's not democracy. It's tyranny that they're using here. Another side issue, which I've personally been talked with some people about is I know three judges I've discussed with their retirement. They've got 25, 30, 40 years with the circuit court. They've tried a lot of criminal cases. But the impositions on them, the judges, is just as strenuous as, maybe not as much, but as the police, but they've got to reissue a report after every hearing, and they've got to do a detailed study about it. The workload is just impossible, and they're getting out while they can. So you're going to see a lack of, on the judiciary, which you know is the last line there of defense. There, some good guys are retiring from the bench with a lot of good experience, and they'll be replaced by the low bail group, the no bail group, which is not going to make us safer at home. There's a website out there that I look at, is CWB Chicago, where I've been watching for a year, where you can see these evidence of videos of people being mugged, shot, and you know, the stories behind them, the stories about the judges and who failed the system. 5 years ago, I felt like before we got elected, I felt we were safe here. But in our tenure, safety has gone off the rails, and in our tenure on this board, we've done everything we can, I believe, to help make people safe, but the state has gone awry, and I don't think it's not just one bill. As Keith said, there's a number of bills out there. You have to stay vigilant against the evil that's out there. So we'll have to do our best, and just encourage everybody to do what they can to help stop this oncoming crime wave. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Radiszewski.
I'll chime in with some comments, and thank you, everyone, for your comments. I agree with all of them wholeheartedly. This act, it scares me. It definitely poses a threat to public safety, to victims, to witnesses of violent crimes. But one thing that we kind of didn't address is how people are going to take the law into their own hands. So, Sean, you mentioned about, what if you get home and somebody's in your pool, or, you have a daughter and the stalker is outside in the yard, and all you can do is call the police, and the police, will give that person a ticket. I can only imagine that a father, a husband, just a loved one is going to want to protect their loved one. If somebody's trying to hurt my child, how even, not saying that I would take the law into my own hand, but I could just see how that could happen. More and more people are buying guns because they're not feeling safe. I just think it's just anarchy. So definitely, please, I think everybody needs to speak up. This can't go into effect. That's all.
So I will only clean up the comments a little bit to point out with Trustee Healy is that you are safe here in Orland Park and have been. But the pressure on our police because of these policies, and by the way, this is Kim Foxx's policies on steroids. Okay, that's what this is. This is worse than her policies. And with those policies, we have stretched our police department. We have changed how we do things. We do things way differently to keep you safe, and we've kept crime down in Orland Park, but it's not because our police officers aren't busy. We're busier than we ever have been, but it's because of the efforts we made. But to all the trustees' points, going forward, our law enforcement officials won't be able to do that anymore. We'll have our hands tied, and we won't be able to do anything to stop these policies. We won't be able. It's not only the Kim Foxx policies, but this is worse. This is absolutely even worse than her policies. So the people, you don't have to rise up and picket and yell. You have a voice. It's called Election Day. Remember all these state legislators and vote them out. Enough is enough. You keep voting for these people like Kim Fox was reelected, you're going to keep getting the same garbage until, exactly as Trustee Radishevsky said, we end up in a position where we have anarchy and we have people taking the law in their own hands, which none of us want to see. Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Radishevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Any non-scheduled citizens and visitors? Board comments.
Board comments. Trustee Radishevsky, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Board comments. Trustee Radishevsky, do you have any comments?
Do I have any comments? You know what? I just want to say thank you to the board and to, staff, to everybody for covering for me. It's been a long road of recovering. I'm still on the mend. I'm, definitely looking forward to, being back to meetings and doing what I can. I'm sad that I missed all the fun stuff that happened at the village over the summer, but I'm looking forward to, being a part of things moving forward. So thank you for everybody, for your understanding and, your sympathy, your support, and, just for help seeing me through it.
Trustee Healy.
I, for one, enjoyed the presentation to the Park School today. It had a lot of things that I learned while attending some of the history museum board meetings. There's some history there, and I'm glad to see you all recognize that too, and which coincides with the History Museum Night Out coming up this Thursday at, I believe it's 6 o'clock, over at the Peace Market on Union Street. So hope you all can make it there.
Trustee Compass.
I'd like to open again with another very warm welcome back to Trustee Radishevsky. Joni, it's very good that you're back, and we're very happy to have you here, even if virtually. Also, I'd like to congratulate Ray, Greg, and Anna and the entire CPAC team on a successful close of another great season. Ray let me know the team finished strong with another 5-star review in August. And I'd also like to say that I'm especially thankful to the leaders that came back for one more year when we knew that staffing was going to be a challenge this year. So to Brittany, Amy, Rob, Dana, Maddie, Emma, Jenna, and Taylor, thank you for all of your service this year. And then lastly, I'd like to remind residents, if you have not yet gotten your Brewfest tickets, I think there's still some time left. You can find them at universe.com/brewfest. I don't know if Joel has come to regret offering his space to host it in Public Works, but last year that space worked out, I thought, really great. It was a great time, and I would highly encourage people to turn out for that. And then special thanks to Mazda of Orland Park for sponsoring the event again this year. That's it.
Trustee Malani.
I'd like to thank everybody that came out to battle the weather on August 20th, which, by the way, we won the battle, to watch the YouTube, Pearl Jam, and Elton John tribute bands performing at Centennial Park West. It was a great evening, had a lot of fun, and the acts were great. So I was unable to attend the concert over the weekend. However, I heard it was a great time as well, and it really makes me proud and makes me glad that we can have events like this in Orland Park, and I'm really looking forward to the future completion of the work we do at Centennial Park West so we can actually expand what we're doing out there. Really looking forward to that. Trustee Compass mentioned the Brewfest. Keep in mind that there'll be over 40 beers to sample. I don't recommend sampling all 40. That might be a rough night. And dinner is going to be provided by City Barbecue. So thank you all for coming tonight, and welcome back, Trustee Radishevsky. And Mayor Pico, now we have something else in common. I also had Miss Martello, but in 4th grade when she taught at Liberty. So
she was still teaching then?
Yeah, there's a little bit. There's a little bit of a gap there. Yeah. So yeah.
Trustee Katsinas.
I just too wanted to say welcome back, Joni. We missed you. You are an inspiration. Just your smile, your demeanor, after everything you've been through, You're a wonderful person, and we are very blessed to have you on the board with us. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in person. I also wanted to talk about the concert that was last Saturday. It was a great concert. It was very special to people in my family, and I want to thank staff for doing such an outstanding job. And I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, probably one of the well-attended concerts that we've had. Okay, so people were definitely there, and it was a really great night, and your staff did an amazing job. And Chief, I also want to thank you. It's through his efforts, networking, that we were able to hear about the cars that were for sale. Police cars that we purchased, 12 of them. Anyone trying to buy a new or used automobile right now know the challenges in obtaining a car. You know, you can't get the color, you can't get the features you want. But thanks to his network of fellow police chiefs and police personnel, he got the word and promptly brought it forward to Joel, who brought it forward to us. So again, another yet outstanding job by our Chief of Police. So thank you, Chief Rossi.
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I know it's a little bit longer of a meeting. Joni, welcome back. We miss you. We look forward to having you back in person.
Thank you.
And Trustee Milani, yeah, Mrs. Martello, I actually had her in the old part of the building, so not the new addition, for third grade, and she gave me really bad marks for penmanship, and by the way, you could try and read my notes, and it still stinks. So she had that part right. And to Trustee Compass's comments about Joel, hey, the good thing about Joel offering up that space is he gets to do a spring cleaning project every year in the fall. So everything gets cleaned out. So I really want to thank everyone for the efforts that they make. I want to thank everyone that attended the last two concerts, plus everyone, Public Works, obviously Recreation, Police, everyone that takes part in that. Great job getting that together. Also, a reminder to everyone that soon we will start the reconstruction project at Centennial Park West for concerts and other events, and that'll begin in 2024 if everything stays on track. So we will likely start moving dirt this year out there, and next year we'll be looking at doing, instead of paid concerts, we'll do some free ones to keep the energy going out there, but we'll do them in the parking lot like we did when we had that one rainstorm, and we ended up having to do it out there a couple of years ago. So we will still host them out there, and then you can also take a look and see how the construction project's coming along. Additionally, we will be, as part of that next year, we'll also be doing Schuessler Park as a reminder, and so both of those parks should be online in 2024, knock on wood. I also want to remind everyone that Brewfest is on September 17th. If you are going to try all 40 beers, please make sure that the other person with you buys a DD ticket, because you'll need a way home, or Uber. So please be safe. I'm sure our police department would appreciate that, as would all the rest of the residents of Orland Park. With that, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
I move to go into executive session for A, approval of minutes, B, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performances, or dismissal of specific village employees.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. Go into executive.